Hey, what's going on my 44,000 amazing friends? I hope we're all doing absolutely fantastic today. We're going to be talking about the A7IV and the FX6 and which one would I choose, because there's been a lot of comments in a few videos and even on my Instagram. I see you have the FX6 and you have the A7IV, but what would you actually choose in a commercial? Well, this is very difficult. This is a very difficult question to ask because the last 3 commercials that I've had, I filmed with the A7IV because I really wanted to test it out in a professional situation and push the limits of this camera and see how well it would do against the FX6. And I am absolutely over the moon about the purchase, but it's not the camera that makes the commercial. It's the operator that knows how to use the camera, that knows how to light the situation, direct the actors, and get the final image. The camera does just help get that image to be a little bit better, depending on obviously what camera you use or what lens you use or what kind of lights and quality of lights you use. But there are so many different situations where you would need the A7III, but there's also so many situations where the FX6 will be tons better. But that's what we're actually going to be discussing in this video. In the last couple of months of using the A7IV, it's almost got no faults. It's a fabulous camera, especially for photos and obviously videos. Now, one of the biggest ones why I love the A7IV is that it's a hybrid camera. You can take photos, videos, and it's also compact. You can put it into a backpack and away you go. The FX6, yeah, not really. You can't really put it in a backpack. I mean, I've traveled with this before in my PGY Tech backpack, but I had to, break it down and make it as small and compact as possible. And it's a bit of a pain in the ass to try and build it back up again. Whereas, the A7IV is pretty much you throw it into your backpack, away you go. But these cameras are kind of for different uses, but obviously the FX6 solely is a video camera, whereas the A7IV you can take photos as well. Actually, just like to jump in here and say thank you to each and every one of you guys for subscribing to my YouTube channel and also being really active in the comments and giving me thumbs up. I really appreciate the support, and also thank you to those guys who actually bought my LUT packs as well on my website. Link will be in the description below if you do want to check out my LUTs. You can see it. I'm using my LUT right now in this video. Just throw it directly on top of the S-Log3 footage, and it gives you nice sort of warm skin tones. But yeah, thank you each and every one of you guys, and yeah, let's get back into the video. One of the biggest things about the A7IV is it does have pro features that the FX6 still doesn't have. Even with the latest firmware update, it didn't actually get a few things that I was assuming that it would get, like focus mapping. I absolutely love focus mapping with the A7IV. The FX6 didn't pick that up in the latest firmware, which, kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Obviously, Sony didn't think it was more of a pro feature, but in my honest opinion, I think it is a fabulous feature that should be in pro cameras. Like, I've used it on literally every single commercial shoot, especially when I do manual focusing with my G Master lenses. But obviously, when you use the FX6, you might not use Sony lenses because the focus mapping does only work with Sony lenses at the moment. But still, autofocus is fixed on this, so the touch to focus is now the same on both these cameras. Beforehand, the FX6 didn't have touch to focus, so if you did do a lot of autofocus stuff on the FX6, it wasn't as good as the Sony A7S III, FX3, and the A7IV, but they're pretty much the same now. Now, variable shutter is an extremely important feature when it comes to filming phones. I've been able to do that very well with the A7IV, whereas the FX6 has focus angle, which is beautiful. I love focus angle because you can set it to 180 degrees and forget it when you change your frame rates. But in terms of getting the very small amounts of adjustments when it comes to that shutter angle to stop flickering, that doesn't have it. But I wish that was in the FX6. Also, I'd like to mention that I own both these cameras, so I don't really care which one is going to be better than the other, because I'm going to be using whichever one is going to be best for the current job. But I know a lot of people are giving me a little bit of hate because I'm saying the FX6 isn't as good as the A7IV, and to some circumstances, it's not. It really depends on the situation and really depends on what job you're actually using it for. But I know that the A7IV is extremely powerful. I know that these small mirrorless cameras are almost as good as some cinema cameras, and It's a hard fact. That is the truth. It really depends on the situation you're actually shooting, and you can make these things perform just as well as cinema cameras, depending on obviously your team, your lighting, your directing, acting, all those kind of things. But these cameras are super powerful these days, and I understand the qualities that you can get out of these cameras, specifically if you are lighting the situations perfectly, and everything is just absolutely perfect. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there before you guys get into the comments. Back into the video. Now, the biggest pro of the A7IV is actually cropping in camera. So you can actually use APS-C crop mode and clear image zoom and still get a really nice, clean, sharp image, because it is a 7K sensor that downsamples to 4K, whereas this is only a 4.2K sensor that downsamples to 4K. So it's almost a 1-to-1 readout in this camera, which obviously gives this one much better rolling shutter performance, whereas the A7IV has worse rolling shutter performance. But it really depends on what you actually film and if that's going to make a big difference. But in terms of clear image zoom, you can change your focal length like a click of a button. It is so good if you do shoot with primes, because I have been shooting a lot of my commercials with the G Master primes. I've got the 24, 35, and 85mm lenses, and that pretty much covers me for everything. But when it comes to full frame 4K 60, we all know that Sony A7IV has that crop, whereas the FX6 doesn't have the crop. So I don't have to change lenses if I do quickly throw it into slow motion. When it comes to my commercials, I don't necessarily shoot slow motion very often. When it comes to like hero shots and stuff, yeah, I do, but I do have enough time to change lenses. But I don't have to change lenses on this one because it stays full frame. I'm able to get 4K 120 frames per second as well. I don't think I've ever filmed 4K 120 frames per second. There hasn't really been anything necessary to film that 4K 120 in some of my commercials. It's pretty much just regular motion or 4K 50 at the very most. Now also, the FX6 does have 240 frames per second, which is a big deal breaker for some people. The A7IV only shoots 120 frames per second in 1080 and doesn't have 1080 240, whereas this one does have 1080 240 and it's phenomenal. It's really nice and tack sharp, and even like if you've seen my 1080p video and 4K video, the 1080 in this is extremely sharp. It's beautiful quality, it's nice and clean as well, which is the most important part. So if you do shoot a lot of 1080, the FX6 actually is tons better than the A7IV. But the A7IV does edge out the FX6 when it comes to low light performance in the lower ISOs and image sharpness as well. Now, one of the biggest ones that is a deal breaker for me and that I love choosing the FX6 is that ND filters. Now, this has variable ND filters, so when I am on the fly, I can change my exposure like that. It is so simple. Whereas if I've got the A7IV and I'm between 2 to 5 stops and 6 to 9 stops on my ND, and I need to go to that one up or one down, I have to change the ND filters off, which is a bit of a pain. And there was a situation in a commercial just recently on the weekend that I had to film 2 girls outside. It was sunset, it was sunny, it was cloudy, and I had to get the right time, and I was running out of time. Changing lenses, changing ND filters was an absolute pain. So I ended up sticking with 35 GM and one ND filter, and sometimes cranking the shutter or just cranking the ISO if I wanted a bit more light in. Yeah, it was a tough situation. I was running out of time, and if I did have the internal ND in the A7IV, it would have made things so much faster and smoother. But overall, you can't go wrong with the A7IV. It's a phenomenal camera, especially when you try and compare it to the FX6. And I'm sitting here and be like, really, it's find it hard to compare it with the FX6. Just gonna quickly change the battery. Right, sorry, had to change the battery. That's probably one of the things I should have talked about as well, is the ability to attach V-mount batteries onto this and being able to power my monitor, being able to power follow focus systems and the camera itself is so good. But I have been using the V-mount batteries on the A7IV. If you've seen my rigged out video, link will be up here or in the description below. You can see how I've rigged out the A7IV to be able to use the V-mount battery so I can power my monitor, I can power the camera, and a follow focus system as well if I really wanted to on that. But having the smaller batteries in that, they don't last as long as these ones. These will easily last a few days of full day shooting, which is so good. But one of the biggest selling points of the A7IV is actually that size and compact form factor, because I could literally throw this into a bag, whereas this, I can't really throw it into a bag, and I have to rig it out each. So I was going to do a what's in my bag video, but if I was going to do a what's in my bag video, this is the FX6 box. So I've custom made this box right here to fit the FX6. So that's just the camera, no lenses. I do fit some sound and audio stuff in there as well, and the monitor will fit in there. So I pretty much just slide this directly in without breaking it down, because then I can pull it out, put the monitor on, start shooting straight away. It's so much better than breaking it down, fitting it into a backpack. But what's in my backpack? It just won't really happen. It would be more like what's in my truck. But yeah, in terms of form factor, A7IV wins hands down, because it is designed to be that small. It's designed to be able to fit into someone's backpack, to take photos, to take videos, to take on traveling trips. But I've been using it for professional commercials, and no one even knows the image quality is actually sometimes better than the FX6. Better dynamic range, sharper image. If that's what you're going for, it's phenomenal, it's great. But one-to-one readout, low rolling shutter, internal NDs, brilliant form factor, so you can really get some nice natural motion. Whereas the IBIS in the camera looks a bit funny sometimes when you try and do a lot of handheld stuff, which a lot of my commercials are handheld because I do prefer that natural footage. But then I do have some commercials where I do use gimbals and stuff. And the A7IV has been perfect for that, because there was one or two scenes that I actually did film on a gimbal. The A7IV, phenomenal, light and compact, and I didn't have to throw this on the Crane 3S with my big, small rig, double handle thing and easy rig. Let's not get into that. It's just crazy setups, those ones. So one thing I do suggest though, it's not necessarily the camera that you really need to choose between. It's actually a lot of the lighting gear and grip gear. Those pieces of filmmaking equipment are the things that you should be investing in the most, because they are a make or break on set. You can't just get a camera and a gimbal and start shooting, because it won't look good. Trust me, it won't look good. You really need to invest in lighting and trying to upskill your abilities and know how to light each individual scene. But not just know how to light each individual scene, know how to diffuse, know how to bounce, and use a whole bunch of neg as well. So you really have to start upskilling yourself, because if you did buy the A7IV and you are expecting to shoot professional looking footage, the image quality will be fantastic, but it probably won't look good because it'll be flat. There'll be just terrible house lights and stuff, and you haven't lit the scene yourself. So yeah, I definitely recommend learn as much as you can when it comes to lighting. But overall, the last few months of using the A7IV has been a dream. It's been an amazing camera, and I absolutely recommend it to almost everyone, because it's a great starting camera, it's a great intermediate camera, and it's a great professional camera as well for photos and videos. It's phenomenal. But my heart stays with the FX6. This thing will be staying with me for almost forever. I absolutely love this camera for almost every situation, obviously except photography because it's a video camera. But this won't be replaced anytime soon, and I will be going back to shooting my commercials with the FX6 depending on which one I actually need, and it obviously depends on what I need in that commercial. If I'm using some really tight spaces and handheld gimbal work, then those tight spaces, A7IV is going to come in clutch, which is great. But yeah, anyway, enough of me rambling. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. That would be absolutely amazing. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you already haven't. And guys, I'll see you in the next one. All right, let's get it.